Chima Akafor was 25, and people noticed him even when he did not want to be noticed. Not because he tried to shine, but because there was something about him that refused to look small, even when life did everything to make him bend. He was tall and handsome in a quiet way, deep-set eyes that looked like they carried thoughts, a straight face that did not beg for pity, and a calm strength in his shoulders that made strangers assume he had it easier than he did. They were wrong. That evening he dragged his body out of work like a man pulling a heavy load with a tired rope. Dust sat on his skin and clothes like it belonged there. His shirt clung to him from sweat. His palms were rough. His back ached. His stomach felt like a hollow drum beating inside him. He stopped beside the road, breathing slowly and trying to gather himself before heading to the small place he called home. In his pocket was a folded note. It was not a love letter. It was not a contract. It was his own handwriting, numbers, calculations, and a single line written at the top in plain ink. 300,000 bride price. He had been counting it the way hungry people count grains of rice. Not because he loved money, but because that number stood between him and the life he had promised himself he would build. He had been with Helen for 5 years, 5 long years of patience, sacrifice, and quiet endurance. He wanted to marry her like a proper man. Not with shame, not with empty hands. So he worked and he kept working. Chima's fingers reached into his pocket and touched the edge of his savings envelope. It was not thick, but it was growing slowly, painfully. He swallowed, forcing his hunger down like it was an insult he did not have time to answer. Then the road changed. A deep, soft purr rolled toward him. Smooth, expensive, almost unreal. Headlights glided across the dust. A luxury car pulled up and stopped so close to him it felt like a scene from a film. People nearby turned their heads. Chima did not move at first. His body was too tired for surprise. He simply stared at the car as if it had made a wrong turn. The back door opened. A man stepped out. He was in his early 50s, well-built, neatly dressed, with the kind of composure money gives people. But his face was not composed. His eyes were wet, and his mouth trembled like he was holding back words that had waited too long. This was not a stranger. This was Mr. Charles Akafor, Chima's father, not just any rich man. Charles Akafor was known in powerful circles as the owner of one of the most influential banks in the country, a bank so feared and respected that people said one phone call from him could freeze a man's entire life. He had money, yes, but more than that, he had reach. He had control. The kind of control that made people careful around his name. But in front of Chima, he looked like none of that mattered. He walked forward slowly as if he was afraid Chima would disappear if he blinked. "Chima," he called, voice low, broken in places. "My son." Chima's chest tightened. The dust on his skin suddenly felt like fire. His hunger vanished, replaced by something sharp and bitter. Charles stopped a few steps away, staring at him like he was seeing a miracle. "I've been looking for you," Charles said. Please talk to me, just talk to me." Chima's hands clenched at his sides. For a moment there was only silence between them, the kind of silence that carries 5 years inside it. Then Chima laughed, one short sound that held no humor at all. "You found me," he said, voice flat. "After all this time you found me." Charles nodded quickly, desperate. Yes, why is it now?" Chima cut in, and his voice rose like a wound being torn open. "Why are you here again?" Charles flinched. Chima stepped forward, and the tiredness in his body turned into anger that seemed to wake every part of him. "You are my father," he said, each word heavy. "And you have only one son. You did not care for me when it mattered, but now you want to come and talk about family." Charles opened his mouth, but Chima did not stop. "My mother died 5 years ago," Chima said, his eyes burning. 5 years. Do you know what I did that day?" Charles's face collapsed. "Called you," Chima continued. "I called you 1 time, 2 times, 10 times. I called you until my phone almost died with me. I called you a 100 times. His voice broke on the last number and the pain slipped out before he could hold it. "A 100 times," he repeated, quieter now but sharper. "I just wanted you to come home and see her body. I just wanted you to look at her once, that was all." Charles's lips trembled. "Chima, what did you do?" Chima asked. "You did not come. You did not even pick. You did not send anyone. You disappeared like we were nothing." Charles took a step forward. "I was wrong." Chima's eyes flashed. "Selfish people like you," he said, voice shaking. "You don't deserve to be my father." The words landed like a slap. Charles stood there wounded, breathing like he had been hit in the chest. Then he bowed his head slightly like a man finally accepting a judgment he had avoided for years. "Yes," he whispered. "I was wrong." He looked up again and his eyes were full. "I have been trying to make it up to you," Charles said, voice thick. "Every day all these years I built everything with you in my mind." Shima's face hardened. Charles lifted his hand, gesturing toward the luxury car behind him. "Chima, I am not an ordinary man," he said, as if stating the obvious could heal what was broken. "I own more than you can imagine. I built power influence. I own the most powerful bank. People tremble when my name is mentioned." Chima's jaw tightened. "I'm ready to hand everything to you." Charles continued quickly as if speed could convince Chima. "The properties, the businesses, the bank, the entire family legacy. I'm waiting for you to come home and inherit it." Chima stared at him. Then he shook his head slowly like he was hearing madness. "What inheritance?" he said. "What legacy?" He pointed at his dusty clothes. "Look at me," Chima said. "I am tired. I am hungry. I came out of work with sand on my skin. And you want to stand here and tell me stories about world assets." Charles's shoulders dropped. "Chima, it has nothing to do with me," Chima said firmly. "Your wealth, your bank, your name, none of it is my business." Charles's eyes widened. "It is your business because you are my son." Chima's voice sharpened again. "I'll tell you what," he said. "You will not use your money to buy your way back into my life. If you truly have a heart problem like people say, then I'm sorry, but I'm not coming home with you." Charles looked like he might fall, but he forced himself to stand. He snapped his fingers slightly, and a man from the car brought out a small box and a thick envelope. Charles held them out with trembling hands. "This car," he said, swallowing. "It is for you." He raised the box. "A house, a mansion, everything has been arranged." Then he extended the envelope. Inside was a bank card, sleek, heavy-looking, the kind of card people only saw in stories. "And this," Charles said, voice careful, "is a card linked to accounts that can change your life in a day. Take it. Even if you don't want me, take it." Chima stared at the items as if they were poison. His chest rose and fell. For a second it looked like something inside him might soften. Then his eyes turned cold again. "I don't care about these things," he said. He did not take the car keys. He did not take the box. He did not touch the card. And when he spoke again, his voice was low and final. "I don't want to see you again." Charles's face crumpled. "Chima," he pleaded, stepping forward. "Please, I know you suffered, I know I failed you, but you don't have to live like this." Chima lifted his hand, stopping him. "Leave my work alone," he said. "Leave my life alone." Charles stood frozen, holding gifts that suddenly looked useless. Chima turned away. His stomach growled again, reminding him of the simple truth. Life was still waiting, whether his father cried or not. He started walking, shoulders tight, refusing to look back. Behind him, Charles's voice followed like a wounded prayer. "I fought my whole life," Charles said hoarsely. "Everything was for you." Chima did not answer. He walked on, dusty and hungry, with 300,000 still sitting in his mind like a mountain he had sworn to climb. And the luxury car behind him remained parked for a moment. Shining, expensive, completely out of place, like a past that had finally found him, only to be rejected again. Chima kept walking. The dust on his body felt heavier now, like anger had added its own weight. His stomach still hurt with hunger, but he didn't even care. All he wanted was space, silence. A few hours where nobody dragged his past back into his face. Behind him, the soft sound of footsteps followed. He didn't need to look back to know who it was. "Chima," his father called again, voice strained. Chima stopped and turned sharply. "I said don't disturb my work," he snapped. "Don't disturb my life." Charles stood a few steps away, breathing hard like he had been running, not walking. The expensive car was parked behind him, calm and shiny like it was mocking the street. Charles lifted the bank card again. "Just take it," he pleaded. For safety, Chima stared at the card like it was a trap. "For safety," he repeated with a bitter laugh. "Safety from what? Hunger, shame, or your guilt?" Charles's eyes shone. "Chima, please," he said, and his voice shook. "I know you don't want to hear anything from me. I know you hate me, but take this card, keep it. Even if you don't use it, just keep it." Chima's jaw tightened. "I don't need it," he said. Charles stepped forward closer than before and held the card out again. His hand was trembling. "Please," he whispered, "I'm begging you, not because of me, because I can't watch you like this." Chima wanted to push his hand away. He wanted to shout again. He wanted to tell him to carry his money and leave, but he looked at his father's face. This man that people feared. This man whose name could shut down businesses. His eyes were wet like a helpless person's. His shoulders were low. His mouth kept trembling like he was holding back tears. For the first time, Chima didn't just see a rich man. He saw a man who looked broken. Chima's anger didn't disappear, but something in him softened just a little. He reached out and collected the card. Not with respect, not with gratitude, just to end the scene. There he said coldly, "I took it." Charles exhaled like a man who had been drowning and finally found air. Chima pointed at him. "Listen," he said, voice low and clear. "Stop disturbing my life." Charles nodded quickly. I will. Chima tightened his grip on the card. "And don't come to my workplace again," he added. "Don't block the road for me. Don't embarrass me in front of people." Charles swallowed. "Okay." Chima turned and began to walk again, slower this time. He expected his father to keep following, but Charles stopped. He stood by the car and watched Chima's back like a man watching something precious walk away. Then quietly, he entered the car. The car door closed with a soft click, and the car drove off. But Charles Aquifer did not drive off like a man who had given up. He drove off like a man who had decided something. Chima got to his small room later that night. He washed the dust off his body slowly, like he was washing off the whole day. He ate something small, nothing fancy, just enough to stop his stomach from turning on him. Then he sat on the edge of his bed and brought out his savings. He poured the notes on the bed and started counting again. 1, 2, 3. His fingers moved fast, careful, like he didn't want to make mistakes. When he finished, he sighed. He was close, but not there yet. Chima leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Then Helen's face came into his mind, clear as morning, 5 years. He remembered the early days when he had left home. He was still struggling, full of dreams. He remembered how he used to encourage her when she cried and said nothing would work. How he would spend what he had just to make sure she didn't feel unloved. He remembered standing by her family, too. Showing up when they needed help, carrying loads, running errands, keeping quiet when people spoke to him like he wasn't important. He had endured insults he didn't deserve, and he had done it without complaining because he loved her. He also remembered one hard truth he had been carrying in silence. Helen didn't know everything about him. Nobody did. He had never told her where he truly came from. He had never told her the full story of his father. He had never told her what kind of life he walked away from. He had kept it locked away, the way people hide pain underneath clothes. But after today, he knew he couldn't keep pretending forever. He looked at the bank card on the small table beside him. His father's card, his father's world. Chima shook his head slowly. "This can't continue," he muttered. He picked up his phone, thinking, "Tonight I will tell Helen everything, not to show off, not to threaten, just to be honest, just to ask her what he should do next." Because for the first time in a long time, Chima felt unsure. He looked at his savings again and smiled faintly. The way a tired man smiles when he is still trying. "Once I pay this," he said softly to himself, "Helen will finally be mine." He paused. "Then I can come clean about everything." He folded the money neatly, pushed it back into the envelope and stood up. Outside, the night was calm, but inside Chima's chest something was beginning to shift. Chima didn't waste time. The moment the thought settled in his chest, "I will tell her tonight." He grabbed his phone, slipped on his slippers, and walked out. He wasn't going to tell Helen everything over text, not after 5 years, not after what happened that afternoon. He was still hurt, still angry, still confused. But there was also something else inside him, an urgency he couldn't explain. Like if he didn't speak now, something would break. As he walked, he kept thinking of his father's face. The shaking hands, the wet eyes, the word Charles kept repeating like a prayer. "Please." Chima didn't know why, but he wanted Helen to hear it. Not because he was impressed, not because he wanted pity. He just wanted someone close to him to know what he was dealing with. By the time he reached Helen's parents' house, his breathing was heavier and sweat was already gathering at his temples. The compound gate was open. There were people inside, voices, laughter, movement, like something was going on. Chima slowed down. He adjusted the small envelope of money in his pocket. He touched it once the way he always did, like reassurance. Then he walked in. In the sitting area outside, Helen was there. She looked different, not her usual simple look. Tonight she was dressed like someone going somewhere important. Her hair was neat. Her makeup was clean and bold. Her earrings caught the light as she turned her head, and beside her was a man Chima had never seen before. The man was flashy in a way that didn't try to hide it. Shiny watch, loud confidence, clean shoes, a smile that looked like it was meant to intimidate. He stood close to Helen like he belonged there. Chima's step slowed again. Helen saw him and her expression changed immediately, like someone seeing a problem they thought had already been handled. "Chima," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "What are you doing here?" Chima forced a small smile. "Helen," he said, "I came to see you." Helen didn't let him finish. "See me for what?" she asked, her voice sharp after everything. "You still dare to show up here?" Helen's mother, who was sitting nearby, chuckled. Chima's throat tightened, but he kept his face calm. "I just want to talk," he said. "Please, can we talk somewhere private?" Helen laughed. One quick laugh that carried no warmth. "Private," she repeated, "so you can come and beg again. Fill my ears with empty promises." Chima glanced around. People were watching now. Even Helen's mother had stepped closer, folding her wrapper tighter as if she came out to enjoy the show. Chima lowered his voice a little. "Helen, please," he said, "let me explain something. Something happened today, my father." Helen lifted her hand like she was stopping the noise. "Your father," she said. "Chima, I'm tired of stories." Then she stepped closer, stood right in front of him, and spoke clearly so nobody would miss it. "Let me make it simple for you," she said. "We are done." Chima blinked. "What?" he asked quietly. Helen turned slightly and held the flashy man's arm like a trophy. "I'm engaged," she announced. "This is Jason Norsu, my fiancé." The words hit Chima like a slap. For a second he didn't breathe. Then he looked at Helen's face, searching for something. Shame, regret, hesitation, anything. There was nothing, just pride. Chima swallowed hard. "Helen," he said, his voice low now. "What are you saying? We've been together 5 years." Helen's eyes narrowed. 5 years of suffering," she replied. 5 years of me waiting for your tomorrow. 5 years of hearing it will get better. 5 years of watching my mates move forward while I keep managing you. But for your information, I figured out my life a long time ago. Jason and I have been dating for some time now, and I really am not sorry. You are just finding out now." Shima's mouth opened, but no words came out. Helen pointed at his clothes. "Look at you." He said, "You came here with that construction dust still on you. Do you even have sense of shame?" Chima's face tightened. He tried to speak calmly. "I came because I was excited to see you," he said. "I wanted to tell you something important." Helen scoffed. "Important," she repeated. "Is it about that 300,000 you've been killing yourself over?" She laughed again, louder this time. "That money you are forming like it's a big achievement," she said, shaking her head. 300,000 is like pocket change. That is the money Jason gives me for my skin air." Chima felt something in his chest crack slightly, but he held it in. "Helen," he said carefully, "that money is not small to me. I worked for it. I did it because I wanted to marry you." Helen's mother stepped forward, lips curled with contempt. "Marry her?" she repeated. "See, this is what real life looks like, and not those promises you have been feeding my daughter. Promising her it will be better someday when it doesn't seem to get better." A few neighbors murmured in agreement. Chima's eyes stung, but he refused to let tears come out. He had to be a man, although it hurt so much. He looked at Helen again. "I supported you," he said quietly. "I stood by you. I stood by your family. I endured insults. I never complained. Why are you doing this to me like I'm nothing? Is life all about money? What about everything we have been through?" Helen's face hardened. "I don't care about what we have been through because you are nothing," she said. The words landed clean and cruel. "An embarrassment," she added. "That's what you are." Chima's hands clenched. He wanted to shout. He wanted to ask her if she remembered the nights he borrowed money just to help her submit forms, the days he skipped food so she could buy what she needed. But he knew shouting would only make them enjoy it more. So he breathed in slowly, the way he did on the construction site when things became too heavy. Jason finally spoke, smiling like he had been waiting. "If you know what's good for you," he said, "disappear." Chima looked at him for the first time properly. Jason's eyes were cold under the smile. Jason stepped forward and reached into his pocket. He brought out a black card and held it up like a weapon. The people around reacted immediately, whispering and gasping as if they had seen a miracle. Jason lifted his chin. "This is the kind of life Helen deserves," he said. "No stress, no suffering, no dirty promises." Helen stood beside him like she had become royalty overnight, her hand still hooked around his arm, her face proud. Chima stared at the card, not because he was jealous, because he noticed something. The logo, the color, the look. It was the same bank, his father's bank. Chima's throat went dry. He stepped forward slightly, eyes still on the card. "Helen," he said quickly. "Please come, let me talk to you privately. Just 2 minutes, please." Helen rolled her eyes like he was begging for food. "What? Talk to me about what?" she snapped. "So you can lie again." Chima reached for her arm gently just to pull her aside. "Helen, please." Helen yanked her arm away sharply. "Don't touch me," she shouted. Before Chima could step back, she shoved him hard in the chest. Chima lost balance and fell to the ground. Dust rose around him. A few people laughed. Someone hissed like they were enjoying the humiliation. Chima sat up slowly, his palms burning from the rough ground. Helen pointed at him like he was a disgrace sitting at her feet. "Look at you," she yelled. "Look at you on the ground like the useless person you are." Then she started calling him names. Sharp, ugly words meant to make him feel smaller than the dust on his skin. Chima's ears rang, but his face stayed stiff. He didn't beg, he didn't cry, he just looked up at her with pain. He couldn't hide anymore. "Helen," he said quietly, "I came here because I thought you were my person." Helen laughed again bitterly and loud. "Your person," she said. "Chima, you should be ashamed of yourself." Jason stepped closer, still holding the black card. "You heard me," he said. "Disappear. Don't come near her again." Chima's eyes went back to the card one more time. Same bank, same world. And suddenly the scene felt deeper than ordinary heartbreak. Chima was still on the ground. His palms stung. His chest felt tight. The laughter around him sounded far away, like it was happening in another world. Helen stood over him like she had won something. Jason's voice was still loud, still proud, and still cutting. "See the kind person you are following," he was saying. "Look at him." Nothing. Chima didn't answer. He didn't even look at Jason again. He just sat there breathing slowly, trying to hold himself together. He had done pain before, but this one was different. This one felt like shame with an audience. Then a voice entered the compound, clear, calm, and not impressed. "Is this how you people behave?" Everyone turned. A young woman had just walked in. She wasn't dressed as she came to a party. She looked like someone who was simply passing by. Simple top, simple skirt, a small bag in her hand. But she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her beauty wasn't loud. It wasn't the kind that shouted for attention. It was the kind that made people look twice without knowing why. Her name was Ruby Wiki. Ruby sold food at the construction site where Chima worked. Rice, beans, noodles, whatever she could cook and bring in a clean cooler. The workers knew her because she was always there, always steady, always patient with their jokes and their hunger. Chima had bought food from her many times. Sometimes she added extra stew without saying anything. Sometimes she just nodded at him and moved on. They weren't close. They had never really spoken properly, but they had seen each other enough to recognize each other's faces without needing introductions. Ruby wasn't supposed to be here. She had only been passing by to get something from a nearby store when she heard the noise and saw the small crowd. Curiosity made her look in. Then she saw Chima on the ground and something in her face tightened. Not anger like a fight, but a quiet irritation. The kind that comes when people are being wicked for fun. Ruby stepped forward and looked straight at Chima. For a second her eyes softened. Then she reached out her hand. "Stand up," she said simply. Chima hesitated. He didn't want to stand up and look weak. He didn't want to stand up and give them another chance to laugh. But Ruby's hand didn't shake. It stayed there like she meant it. So Chima took it. She pulled him up easily like she had helped men up from worse situations before. As he stood, he tried to step aside quickly as if he didn't want her involved. Ruby noticed. She tilted her head a little and gave a small, dry smile. "Don't worry," she said loud enough for the people watching. "You'll survive, you'll have a strong body." A few people laughed again, but this time it was lighter, less cruel. Chima gave a weak, tired look and answered without thinking. "My body is strong," he said, "but my heart is not." Ruby glanced at him and her smile faded slightly. She didn't pity him, she didn't dramatize it, she just nodded once like she understood. Then she turned to Helen and her family. Her voice became firm. "You people should be ashamed," Ruby said. Helen scoffed. "Who are you?" Ruby didn't flinch. "I'm Ruby," she said calmly. And I sell food at the construction site where this same Chima you're calling useless works every day. She pointed gently at Chima, not like she was begging for him, but like she was stating a fact everyone already knew. And everybody in this neighborhood knows how hard he has been working to impress your family, Ruby added. So if you want to break up, break up. But why are you turning it into a show? Helen's mother hissed. Mind your business. Ruby's eyes narrowed slightly. It is my business when adults gather to humiliate one person like it's entertainment, she replied. And let's not pretend. You people have been collecting his effort for years. A low murmur moved through the small crowd. People did know Chima. They had seen him leave early and return late. They had seen him carry blocks and still walk home quietly. Nobody said it out loud before because nobody wanted trouble, but Ruby said it like she didn't fear them. He must stared at Ruby in surprise. People usually insulted him. They didn't defend him, especially not in front of Helen and her family. He looked at Ruby like he was seeing her properly for the first time. Ruby didn't even look back at him. She kept her eyes on Helen. Helen, Ruby said, you're free to choose who you want, but don't pretend this man is nothing. He tried. He really tried. Helen's mouth tightened. Jason stepped forward, clapping slowly like Ruby was doing comedy. Oh, so now we have a defender, he said. Madam Food Seller. Some people laughed again. Ruby turned her head and looked at Jason like he was a small boy making noise. Jason lifted his black card again and spoke loudly and performing for the people. This is what matters, he said. Not suffering, not carrying cement, not empty love money. He leaned closer to Chima, voice full of contempt. You are worthless, he said, and you don't deserve Helen. If you know what's good for you, disappear and stop embarrassing yourself. Chima's jaw tightened. He had been silent, trying to leave with what was left of his dignity. But Jason kept pushing, and the worst part was that Jason was speaking like Chima was too stupid to understand what was happening. Chima exhaled slowly. Then, without thinking too much, he reached into his pocket. Ruby noticed the movement and glanced at him. Chima pulled out his own card. Not with pride, not with confidence, just with annoyance, like he was tired of being treated like a joke. Enough, he said quietly. He raised the card slightly. The reaction was immediate. Laughter exploded. Helen laughed first, sharp and mocking. Her mother laughed too, clapping her hands like she had seen a funny skit. Jason laughed the loudest. See this one, he shouted. Now you want to do what? Compete with me. People laughed because Chima was dusty, bra-looking, and standing beside a rich man showing off. To them it looked ridiculous, but Ruby did not laugh. She didn't smile. She didn't join them. She simply looked at the card, then looked at Chima's face. Her eyes held curiosity, not mockery. She didn't believe him immediately, but she also didn't insult him. And that alone made Chima feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not love, not hope, just the small relief of being treated like a human being. Laughter filled the compound. It wasn't the harmless kind. It was the kind that pressed down on a person's chest. Chima stood there holding the card, his face blank like he was trying to keep his heartbreak from showing again. Helen laughed the loudest, holding Jason's arm as she had already moved into a new life. Jason shook his head slowly, smiling like a man who had found fresh entertainment. Wow, he said, raising his voice for everyone to hear. So you're not only broke, you're also shameless.